Hello there, it's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he's no stranger to heartbreak, it's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We're doing musicals this week again, Konrad.
You've developed a kind of... I'm trying to think of a famous musician who had a speech impediment there. I was going to say Stevie Wonder, but he had a different kind of impediment.
No, not speech.
I don't know if there were any singers that had speech impediments. Gareth Gates. I think he had a stutter.
Did he sing Evergreen? Evergreen? Yeah, okay, we'll go with him.
Maybe.
No, it was Will Young, wasn't it?
He came second to Will Young on Pop Stars or Pop Idol.
Something like that. I think Will Young had a bit of a Jonathan Ross thing going on, 100%.
Yeah, one of them had a lisp and one of them had a stutter. And I tell you what, this conversation about 20-year-old talent shows is really going to hit with the youth demographic, and the youth is who this movie that we're talking about this week is aimed at. But without further ado, how about we talk about some gosh darn movies?
Let's do it.
Movies, especially bad ones this week. We're talking about, of course, Dear Evan Hansen, the musical. I put in inverted
it is a musical. It is. In fact, it's only a musical in my eyes, because if it was not a musical, this would not be even worth talking about, even as a joke.
I mean, okay, not to put the cart before the horse, as I want to say, but at what point does playing essentially the same song 30 times while the camera slowly revolves around a 50-year-old man pretending to be a teenager stop being a musical? Like, is that does that count as a musical? Because I feel like they're cheating. Anthony, I've got a question for you before we get into the bashing of Dear Evan Hansen. I am going to let you speak, but I don't know if you know this. You're probably more well versed in stage musicals than I am, to be honest, even though I am quite a big fan of musicals, but I've only seen a few of them. But they announced fairly recently that they were going to do a movie adaptation of Wicked. Have you seen Wicked?
Yes, I have. And there was a petition, wasn't there?
Yes.
What were you going to talk about?
So there was a petition which reached 65,000 signatures for them to not cast James Corden in it, which... First off, I mean, online petitions, they're very hit or miss. Sometimes they come across as a bit stupid. That is a chef's kiss petition. That is spot on.
Fantastic petition. I think we could all get behind that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him as a mouse one too many times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one would have been one too many times, and I feel like he's done it. Well, he was a cat the first time. But I mean, either way, I don't want to see James Corden as an anthropomorphic animal ever again.
Yeah.
He's not in Dear Evan Hansen, but my question to you is this: would this kind of fit his level?
I mean, he would have been closer to the age of Evan Hansen potentially than the actual actor, but no, I don't know. Who could he have been in this? The stepdad, maybe?
Oh, he could have been anyone. He could have played Amy Adams' character. He could have played Juliet.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah,
anyone. Just stick him in there. James Corden. Yeah. He has a level. And it's awful, and I feel like if we're going to insert him into movies, it might as well be movies that are already awful, just so we can kind of get it out of the way. So let's do a credibility check first. You've seen the Broadway musical upon which Dear Evan Hansen is based.
I have I've listened to the album, the actual.
You've listened to it, sorry.
The soundtrack of it a lot of times, and I've also watched a lot of like clips from it. But just to get out ahead of anyone thinking there, I did not go into this thinking this was a good... Okay, the music, we're going to get into Conrad's claim that it all sounds the same. It's, this is not Mumford & Sons, but at the same time, yes, there are one or two very good songs in this. I think a lot of them bring back some musicals, to be honest with you, overdo the bringing back of the motifs from the main song, and this one maybe does that. But there are a few good songs. There are a few good songs in it, but I have issues with the songs overall. But when I listen to the album, I'm in no way thinking about the storyline, because the storyline, as we'll get into, is a load of old horse shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's troubling. We talked about it before. It is a troubling storyline. It's a story of a young, menacing boy who
young
infiltrates. Young menacing boy who infiltrates a grieving family. this is I hated this movie. I hated everything about it. I'm going to say it now, but we'll get into it a bit more in a second. But I mean, I just wanted to get out ahead of that and be like, okay, you quite like the music in this. I found the music to be uniformly awful, apart from one song, which I am looking forward to talking about, because there is one song. There's a gleaming ray of light in this movie where it's like, is it going to realize that this is ridiculous and it should have a sense of humor about itself? And then it doesn't for the rest of the movie. But yes, this is a humorless, joyless, just grey coloured, soupy bowl of gruel.
Grey coloured? Come on, it's blue. It's blue.
It's blue. But I mean, it's just muted. There's no joy.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting you mentioned that. I know you're about to go into sort of the breakdown of the first scene or whatever, as we normally do. But this is relevant to that because you said that there was the song which we'll get into, which you really, really sort of liked and thought that it was going to go down a particular path. You know, it almost felt like John Cleese was going to come onto the screen at any second. There's that sort of farcical nature to it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, the way they open this film is a lot more somber than the way that the actual stage musical opens. And it's interesting because, yes, in the stage musical, they very much put forward that false "you will be found" message, which I really have a problem with, because the point is that this fella is lying, and you know, and like the big reveal at the end of the film, which we'll not get into, that is meant to be taken with a lot of weight. We don't know that yet, and all this guy is just like singing. Anyway, the point is, the first song in the musical is actually sung by the two mothers, basically, like the two families, and it's about how Evan's mom isn't coping with parenthood, as well as Connor's mom is not coping with parenthood. And it's called "Does Anyone Have a Map?" And it's "Does Anybody Have a Map?" And it's really like fast paced, an opening song. And it's really sort of a kind of jovial nature with some undertones of seriousness in there. The way this film starts is none of that. There's no hints of any, like, you know, sort of joyfulness. It's all this socially anxious teenager who is definitely not autistic, even though I know a lot of people who listened to the musical and thought, oh, it's about an autistic guy. It's not. No, it's not. It's more about mental health, I suppose, if they're going for something. But they start so somber.
Yeah.
And to me, when I first started watching, I was like, where is that one to get us to know everyone? And
you need to kick things off with a bang in any musical, guys. It can't just be, let's get into the shit right up front. Like, you need to, you know, get people in the door with something that they're going to enjoy. So something that I thought was quite interesting, and maybe you can confirm or deny this. My understanding is that the Broadway musical upon which this nightmare is based is even more earnest in its kind of storytelling. But I think there's obviously like a difference in medium. I think musical theatre, I like musical theatre, I'm not talking down to it, but it doesn't really allow for subtlety. It's not a very subtle medium. Whereas when you adapt it to film, suddenly all of the kind of questionable decisions that Evan Hansen and other characters make in this story are you like hold a magnifying glass over them, and it goes from being something that maybe you could gloss over because it's a funny little story, and you know the music's kind of carrying us along, to this has become quite sinister. And
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And the thing is as well, because we're in the film, we're in the house of the family that he's lying to, and it's like not like being on stage, as you say. There's a bit of like, let's just get to the next song in the musical, and like they're on the stage, it's clearly all fake, so you sort of go along with the farcical nature of this. In the film, you don't have that. Like, you're in the principal's office, you're in their house. It's any moment you're just like, own up to this, mate. What are you actually doing? Like, it doesn't. I think that this is a storyline where if they managed to have you actually go along with each beat, it might be salvageable. But there's not one moment where maybe the first conversation there's a question, but there's hardly one moment where I think to myself, it's realistic that he's not telling them.
No. Okay, so I mean, let's lay the groundwork here then for those of you who haven't yet seen this. So Dear Evan Hansen is a 2021 release, so it will be considered for next year's Oscars. Directed by Stephen Chbosky, who is a director I have not heard of before, and it was adapted by a writer called Stephen Levinson from the musical written by Justin Paul and Benj Pasek. So those are the names that need to be committed to whatever legal case is formed after the dust has settled on this movie release. It stars Ben Platt, who is 28 years old but is going on 50 by the looks of him in this.
He's the OG. He's the OG.
He is the OG. So I mean, I understand that, you know, those Hansen heads out there, they were crying out when they heard about this movie coming out. They said, you cannot cast anyone apart from Ben for this role. They said you got to bring Ben back, even though he's a 75-year-old man and can't play a teenager anymore.
It's like, but he's got his prostate check at 10 a.m. Doesn't matter. Get him in for 11. We'll delay it.
Yeah, he's got problems with one of his testicles. Like he needs to go to the doctors, and then he's got an appointment with an orthopedic surgeon.
We'll CG out the cane. It's okay.
Yeah. He plays Evan Hansen. Evan is, as I've said before, a young boy who suffers from anxiety and writes letters to himself to cope. And his mother is played by Julianne Moore, who I don't really like Julianne Moore that much as an actress, but she's above this. She's above everything that happens in this. She is an Oscar winner. Let us not forget that she won an Oscar for Still Alice. Somehow she not that Still Alice was or the Oscars in general are a great barometer for quality, but
I haven't seen Still Alice, but so I really need to watch it because a million jokes come into my head whenever I think of it, because I just can think of all those jokes in all those comedy shows saying, if you want to get nominated for an Oscar, play like
someone with
someone with Alzheimer's, someone who's disabled, someone with cancer. You know, this is how I feel about it. I haven't seen the film.
Yeah, I mean, I have quite disingenuously assumed that is the case with that movie. Maybe it's not. But I mean, it takes quite a lot to get me in the door of a very serious drama about someone suffering from Alzheimer's, because even if it's a good movie, it's not going to be a fun experience.
Listen, that an aspect of that reality is coming to every one of us in our life, and we'll be a part of a story like that in our life. Why do I want to watch an hour, 2 hours of it?
I feel like I'm knocking on the door of that already, to be honest. So okay. I'm gonna criticize Ben Platt an awful lot during this, but I'll compliment him for one thing up front. He is a good singer. He's a good singer.
Yeah, that's why
he's able to carry the songs very well, and it's a good thing he is, because like 95% of the songs in this are literally the camera slowly revolving around him in a darkened room as a spotlight shines on him and he sings a solo.
Where thankfully the rest of the pupils cannot see him when he's standing amongst them, because if they saw him and they thought who the hell is this? Stranger danger.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally the Steve Buscemi "How do you do, fellow kids" with like the skateboard over the shoulder. Like, it's farcical how much. And listen, I don't want to backseat write this, but if you're gonna cast him, you need to go whole hog with this and just be like, this is a comedy now. Everything about this is gonna be,
or make it in college at least. That'll do something. Like, he's a mature student. But what I would say as well, though, is we can't overemphasize how much it takes you out of it. Like, there's not one moment in this film where I am suspending my disbelief that he's in high school. No. Every moment he's on the screen, I am thinking to myself, I'm watching a movie and that man is 45 years old. Every single moment.
There's a moment when Zoe, the love interest, who we'll come back to in more detail later, because her relationship with Evan is perhaps the most troubling part of the entire movie. She talks to him after her brother Connor. Connor, is that his name?
Connor.
Connor, yeah. After her brother Connor like shouts at him, and he is so consumed with anxiety that he runs away. But he doesn't just run away; he does the traditional like Naruto run with the arms like out behind him. And watching a man, I'm a man in my 30s. I like to think I have enough self-respect to never run like that. And watching a man close to my age do it was one of the most profoundly upsetting things I've ever seen in a film. It really was.
Considering she looks her age in the film too. It's
everyone else looks their age. Like Connor looks like he's an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, like maybe into his early 20s, but he doesn't bear the ravages of age upon his brow like Ben Platt
veins
does.
popping out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a faded tattoo that he's tried to have removed of a former love on his cheek. So this movie flirts with being a comedy, but it never quite commits never quite commits to the kind of like obviously farcical nature of the central conceit, which is that Evan writes letters to himself. He is in the process of printing out a letter to himself that Connor, the kind of, I guess you call him like mentally disturbed. It's never really established what is up with him, but he's not well mentally. You know, he's got some mental health issues. I think
anxiety. I think it's anxiety. You know,
it might be anxiety. It might like he's got some anger issues as well, as it's revealed later. But he steals Evan Hansen's letter. And also signs his cast as a kind of to say sorry for having shouted at him earlier in the day. And unfortunately, he goes home and commits suicide. And the letter that Evan Hansen wrote to himself is found among Connor's possessions by his grieving parents, played by Amy Adams and another guy. Danny Pino. I always want to think like when I see this guy, I think it's Chris Messina, and it's not, but they're kind of interchangeable in my head. Again, talking about actors and actresses who are so far above this. Amy Adams.
What the hell?
God love you, but what are you doing in this?
This is after she did Arrival.
Yeah, like she has her pick of the litter. She has like Denis Villeneuve, like all the bells of the ball, like ringing like down her door, being like, "Come and be in this amazing film." It's like, no, I'm gonna make Dear Evan Hansen. Someone check on Amy Adams' family because Stephen Chbosky has kidnapped one of them to make her do this. I'm certain of that. But yeah, so that's our central conceit. It is farcical. I don't understand how you don't see that and be like, well, there's got to be some jokes in this because it's obviously a black comedy waiting to happen. But
it's not though. That's the thing. It is nothing. It's the opposite of black comedy, which is what always annoyed me about it. I don't know about you, Konrad. Like I talked to you just before we started about, I wanted to mention something about the marketing. Now, the marketing of this film and musical over the years has been insulting, I believe, because the idea that it is put across, the whole idea of you will be found, and gets to the point where Evan Hansen is with the family and pretending that he knew Connor, and it gets to the point where he gets involved in a charity within school to sort of talk about Connor and talk about the problems of mental health and how to get help. And he stands up on stage, and while lying to everyone about knowing Connor, he gives this speech, which turns into the song "You Will Be Found." And the whole thing is it goes viral. Yeah. And the thing is, Konrad, that in the show, it's a lie. It's a lie what he's doing. But the way that they market this musical, or have always marketed, is "You will be found," and it's a deep and knowing message that you should know that you're wanted and you're valued, and you will be found. And there's not an aspect of irony in what they do. And I'm just like, have you seen the musical that you're marketing? Like, what is this about? Like,
well, so it's really interesting you say that actually, and talk about like the music in it, because we're getting now to the one song in this that I really liked, and it comes quite early on. So essentially, Evan Hansen decides he fancies the deceased Connor's sister. He has a bit of a tumultuous relationship with his mum because she's a nurse and he doesn't get that much attention from her. And in this grieving family unit, he finds a place where he feels loved. So he decides to live in the lie and say, yeah, I knew Connor, and make up a whole bunch of shit about him. And there's an initial song where he softly sings about a fucking orchard or some nonsense at the dinner table that is just washed over me.
He used to love that orchard.
It was like someone just blew hot air in my face as they walked past me on the street. It just meant nothing.
I mean, there are a couple of moments where Evan Hansen is literally standing up in their house while they're all sitting around their dinner table, screaming at them with song.
Well, okay, the other so just to visit that briefly for a second, because it happens multiple times. I like my musicals to acknowledge that a song is happening. Yeah. Like if it's a song, let's have a sing song and let's all have a dance, and it's fine. It's a bit silly, but whatever. In this, Evan is singing and no one else around him sings for the most part. And it's like, okay, so is this just his inner monologue? Is this musical that's happening and everyone else is just going through this really sad drama about a boy who's killed himself? Like it's yet another way in which this just has no joy to it whatsoever.
You're right. There's no joy. I do like that. There are aspects of that in other musicals that I like, but it's always done in a somber way. If you, unfortunately, you're right about the song at the beginning, with Connor singing and everything, the really jovial one. That's the only one that really had any of that. The rest of it is
Yeah.
singing, like the family singing about how they don't care about their brother's death. I Will Sing No Requiem. There's one about how You Will Be Found, which is all a farce anyway. Evan Hansen, we'll get into it, is just trying to use the death of this guy he didn't know to get with his younger sister. It's all very strange.
Well, okay, so I'm going to compliment it now. Then I'm going to talk about this song for a second. So it's I think it's called Sincerely Me. Looking at the track listing, so there is a song that sounds like I don't know if you know who Ben Folds is, but but it sounds like a Ben Folds song. Like it's got that kind of like really upbeat, kind of poppy, but twang to it, but actually quite somber lyrics and somber content underneath the happy sound. And it really appealed to me because you've got Evan and Connor like clearly playing up how happy they are, because the song takes place while Evan is falsifying emails to like corroborate his past relationship with Connor so that he can build this lie. And it's basically them going through all of the experiences they've had together, and it's really funny. And I was watching it and I was like, okay, now you've hit something, movie, like let's stick with this because this is going to be good. And it's the only song like that in the whole movie. Like after that, it's just straight back to right down the middle, earnest, heartfelt nonsense. And it feels like it was written by a different person, that song. I don't understand how that snuck in there. Maybe the Broadway musical has a few more, because I know that we were talking before this about how some are cut from this.
Well, the first one, Does Anyone Have a Map, is a little bit more jovial. The other one is not jovial at all, which we'll get into later. But this is like a very much standalone song, this one. And it just feels like this is actually, like, if they'd done the whole musical in this tone, it actually would be pretty cool. Like it would be very farcical, you know? You're right. Yeah.
And you could still have the, like, this central kind of dramatic tension of, oh, Evan's going to get caught in this lie and there's going to be a big fallout from it. But I think the fundamental flaw in this movie, so as Evan kind of gets ingratiated into this family unit with Amy Adams and the dad, whose name I've already forgotten because it's not Chris Messina, and Zoe, the sister, and they play off Connor's lies with Zoe talking about her actual experiences with her brother, where she says like, oh, he was actually quite abusive to her. And Evan is not only he's not only lying to her about his experiences with Connor, but he's also making her question her relationship with Connor, because he's telling her things that he actually thinks about her, but through the voice of her brother. So it's just incredibly manipulative, like and it is sinister, like, and it's, you could do that if it was a comedy, because it would be like, well, I don't want, obviously I don't want him to succeed, but they're asking you, I think, to kind of be on Evan's side in this and be like, he's just a quiet boy, he just needs someone to look out for him. It's like, no, this is the kind of motherfucker that would like shoot up a mall, like if he wasn't doing this. And I'm not only like half joking about that.
Yeah,
like,
no, I know. Yeah,
he's like a sociopath in this. It's really, really troubling.
Yes, I know. Like that is one of the biggest, and exacerbated, of course, by the fact that he's so old. But it is one of the biggest problems is his pursuing of this young woman. And I think that I like that now. Spoilers. It has been out for a month or two, so it's not really that big spoilers. And the musical's been out for years. But I like that they didn't end up together, because if they did, you know, I do like that aspect of it as well. There's a little bit of saving grace, but I don't know. Yeah, I think the idea that he uses them to get to her. I don't even know why she gives him the time of day at the end. I think really the characterization of this film is all over the place. The stepdad is an interesting fellow. We'll say
he talks to Evan about like just baseball. It's just the most generic thing that a dad can talk about.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's what I wanted to mention. So, guys, if you stay around till after the credits of this podcast on the YouTube version, I'm going to include Konrad's reaction to a song from the stage musical, and that is the opening song of the second act. Brilliant way to open the second act. And the second act is obviously where, you know, he gets his cast off and he's doing great. And he goes in with the stepdad, who's finally sort of coming to terms with Connor. Connor's death, and sort of starting. This is the funniest part: is they start seeing Evan as their own child. They offer him thousands of dollars to go to university. It's all very, very farcical. But
which Julianne Moore like angrily rejects. And
I get it.
I would be like, whatever, fine. Like, I'm not so proud. Like that, I'm not just gonna accept this rich family. I'll make you proud, Dad.
Well, pride is a big thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, pride is a big thing. I get that. Actually, I did understand that characterization. I felt like Julianne Moore was the only character in this whole film that I actually was like had empathy for. Obviously, I have empathy for the family that Evan's rinsing, but at the same time, they're involved in this mental storyline. Whereas Julianne Moore's just going to work, and I'm not going to lie. Like, if I know it's in one of the worst films of all time, but I do actually like the song where it's talking about like there'll be not another truck in the driveway. Actually,
that song
song in isolation, away from this crazy motherfucking thing, I actually like the idea. It's not so much that I love the song. I like the idea of the mom doubling down and being like, I'm not going anywhere. It's like, come on, he's 30, he's 35, but in the idea of the song.
Anyway, before his mum.
Before you go, sorry, Conrad. Before you go on, I just want to say I started plugging an after credits thing, which I need to finish. The song.
We've got to get those hits.
Yeah, the song which we're going to be reacting to after is the song which takes place whenever they're in that office and they're talking about baseball, and it's a song which is basically like we need a metaphor for like fatherhood or for trying your best or whatever. And the song is called "To Break in a Glove." So
because he's got that like glove from like Babe Ruth or some shit.
So that's why they kept the baseball thing in, because they didn't want the song, but they kept in the scene. So
they kept in the one bit of characterization for the dad. It was like, I don't know, he likes baseball, I guess.
So we're gonna react to that song after, guys.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. I mean, I just wanted to mention briefly that Julianne Moore song, because I think in the hands of a better songwriter, that could absolutely work. I think there's a way to have an emotional reconciliation between Evan and his mother, where he's like, our relationship is kind of fucked because I hate myself as much as I do, and her reassuring him that she loves him, but Julianne Moore shouting, "Your mum isn't going anywhere, your mum's staying right here," over and over and over again is it's the kind of parenting that would drive me further away from my parents in this situation. Right. I think it does, Evan.
I'm gonna say something though.
Come on.
This is a song which really would have benefited from them going more down the musical route. Like, remember a few songs from the musical In the Heights where they really like basically let the sets melt away and were like dancing in colors and stuff. That's where this would have benefited. Having Julianne Moore sitting there, basically a cappella singing this to a 35-year-old man, it just didn't work. It just didn't work.
Julianne Moore, she's not a bad singer, but she's not like an amazing singer either. So they're asking a lot of her.
Yes, they are. But it should have been more abstract. It should have been away from a set. She should have been singing into the camera. So the song could have worked, but with her sitting on a couch, holding the hand of this 35-year-old man, saying, your mom's not going anywhere, it just didn't work. And I cannot emphasize enough, this man's age is one of the biggest negatives of this film.
That I feel no sense of. I feel no desire to like protect Evan Hansen because he's a 47-year-old predator, and it's like asking me to be sympathetic for a sex offender. Like, it's not going to happen. There's no way they could possibly achieve that. Okay, so just before we start wrapping this up, then, so talking about things that don't really work in this movie, we get the weird, like 2/3 in, and you kind of mentioned it already. It kind of happens after the Napoleon Dynamite sequence where he sings his song to the school and goes viral. I think that scene would have been better if he'd have done a Daft Punk song, but who am I? I don't write musicals for a living. There's this like dark middle chapter where Zoe's family get cancelled for some reason, like online, like because they're rich, I think.
It's because the letter leaked, and in the letter it implied, the letter that Evan wrote to himself, which everyone thought Connor wrote, it implied that his family didn't care about him, so therefore they were all like, he killed himself because you didn't care about him, so they started getting cancelled. Yeah,
but it's just like a weird kind of like narrative drive for like his parents to suddenly really care about what the internet thinks about them, and then for I didn't actually write her name down, but the character who's like organizing the Kickstarter for
Alana,
Orchard, which is just a great idea. Like to be like, hey guys, we're gonna kickstart.
I really felt like I was watching a YouTube video because I kept getting reminded of the Kickstarter every like 10 minutes. Like, how much are we up to now? How much are we up to now?
Yeah, call to action. Call to action, guys. It's like a YouTuber asking you to subscribe to their Patreon. Just like every 5 minutes, the Kickstarter has to come up, and if it hasn't come up, everyone should be asking why hasn't anyone mentioned the Kickstarter. But so apparently you can kickstart an orchard, and that becomes like the thing that Evan is neglecting. That's a sign that he's becoming consumed by his own lie, which is a bit like it's not actually that important. To be honest, like even if Connor loved that damn orchard, even if he actually gave a shit about it, the Kickstarter to plant some apple trees is not the important thing here. Like the grieving family is the thing.
Yeah, he's actually ignoring the thing that is the second most thing, the second most important thing, in order to give time to the most important thing.
Yeah, it's like it's really weird as like as a narrative thread for someone to be like, and then he does the worst thing. He gives up on the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Okay. We're never going to make 100 grand, Evan.
Yeah, we're never going to plant those apple trees. Which also, like, apple trees don't just disappear. Like, surely the trees are still there.
Well, I think they were going to close it down for some reason. I don't really know why.
Like, the trees are still there, right?
Yeah, well, I suppose like maybe they were going to. Well, actually, my wife's grandmother had an orchard, and they did close the orchard because they're demolishing it all to put up housing estates.
Okay, so that maybe that's what's happened. But I mean, in that case, the Kickstarter is not going to save that, is it? Like,
100 grand's good.
We're going to knock down those people's homes and put some apple trees there. All right.
Yeah, well, it actually did work apparently. So,
would have wanted. No,
so I don't know why the family didn't. Why did the Kickstarter make them that they go down there now? Like, if they really cared about remembering Connor so much, why didn't they just go down and jump the fence when it was closed? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like the Kickstarter is just this weird, like, kind of this weird aside that tries to kind of draw everything together to a kind of satisfying narrative conclusion towards the end of the second act, and it doesn't really work at all. No. Like most of this movie. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about with you, Anthony, and I've got to get your take on this. I suspect I know what you think already, but that conclusion. So we're fully in spoiler territory here now. So if you don't want to know, I mean, you kind of already know because we've kind of already said it. But how this movie ends, tune out now. That romance and how it ends. So let's unpack it a little. And you tell me if I miss anything here. But so he lies to her about knowing her brother. He constructs another life for him, which makes her family, Zoe's family, question her own retelling of much more horrific events, like Connor threatening to kill her.
He gaslit her.
Yeah. He was having some kind of mental episode. Then he agrees to take their money. He's happy to take their money. It's only Julianne Moore's sense of morals, which basically I would take their money as well. So that worries me because I'm clearly more of an Evan Hansen
you are
Julianne Moore, which is one of the most damning indictments of myself as a person I've ever had to confront, to be honest. And then she eventually kind of forgives him, and the movie ends. I'm gonna say it ends on a positive note. Like Evan, I mean, they're not together, but Evan, there's birds chirping, the sun is shining. Evan,
his mum's not going anywhere.
No, his mum is staying right here. And he is free of the well-earned crippling guilt of the lie that he trapped himself in. I think this movie would have been far better if Evan Hansen had killed himself at the end.
Oh God, I don't even want to.
I'm not joking about suicide. I legitimately think that would have been a far better end to the narrative arc for that.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, you are just doing what the characters in the film did, because they all said that they didn't care that their brother and their son killed themselves. Yeah. They will sing no requiem. So all we're saying is, we will sing no requiem for Evan. Like that is,
like Evan, the kindest thing he could have done at the end of this movie is end it all so that others can be free of his poisonous influence. I have no sympathy for this character whatsoever.
I mean, say what you want about the issues Evan has. He cannot judge a height like that. That's.
Oh my God. It's like, did you know that bit in is it Batman Begins or Dark Knight, where like he's threatening that gangster and he's like holding him over the like those ladders at the side of like New York buildings, and the gangster's like,
Dark Knight,
you need to take me to a higher building, just fall and never kill me, and then Batman's like, I'm counting on it, and drops him and he breaks his legs. That's what Evan Hansen did at the beginning of this. Like he climbed a tree that's like 10 feet tall and then just like threw himself off of it and broke his arm.
It was a cry for help. Like we're not making light of it here. We're making fun of a stupid character. He is a fictional character. You know, if you need help, seek help, all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, we don't make light of suicide here. If you're actually struggling, please do seek help and talk about it. Evan Hansen is a fictional person, very poor. I've struggled to even call him a person, to be honest, because no human that I've ever met would be as fundamentally flawed and evil as Evan Hansen is in this movie. I think
it's funny you say that, but I got a little funny story here. Should take 30 seconds. I was doing a teaching course yesterday, and the guy who was giving it, I'm not going to say any details, but he is basically like an author of this big teaching book in the UK at the minute, and he's giving this course, and he's talking about pupils, right? Like, you know, school age children, and he's saying, he said, when you're in the classroom and you've got those human beings in front of you, and then he went, and this was so telling, right? And I thought, you're teaching us. He went, and yes, they are human beings, little human beings. And I thought to myself, that tells me an awful lot about why would you even think of like specifying. And
I've got to clarify.
Clarifying that we all know children are human beings, right? We're all educating human beings here. It's like, what are you doing, mate? This tells me more about you than you want to tell me.
Yeah, you've revealed an awful lot about yourself by feeling the need to clarify that. That's how I feel about Evan. Like I feel like this movie is attempting to clarify that he is a human, and I didn't buy it for 1 second.
Too many veins in the forehead for a human for me.
Yeah. Too much like bad road behind him that he's traveled in those 87 years of life that he's lived.
God, what a terrible man.
Ben Platt, I saw him in, I don't know which ones he was in. He was in some of the Pitch Perfect movies, and I remember not like, I mean, I don't really like those movies very much, but I remember not like actively hating him. But
Ben Platt, I will say, when he started doing this, what's he now, 28 now or something?
He's 28. So
when he started doing this, he would have been like 22, 23. So it's not out of the realm possibility of 22 to 23-year-old looking 17 or whatever on the stage, right?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably about the same age as the guy who played Connor in this movie when he started, I think.
So he is very good. It's just that, like, even Lin-Manuel Miranda wasn't stupid enough to think that he could play Usnavi in The Heights. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, as much as I love his music, I love his talent, he's, you know, I think we could all say he loves a bit of attention, like, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
he's in musical theatre. Let's not beat around the bush here. You don't go into musical theatre if you're a shrinking violet. Like you want to be noticed. I would like all male leads to go the Fred Astaire route and just continue well past the point that they should, with increasingly uncomfortable romances. I think there's a Fred Astaire movie that he made in like the 60s called Funny Face, where I think he's in his 60s and Audrey Hepburn's in it and she's like 20, and it's like, this isn't a believable romance at all. and that's the route I see for Ben Platt, and maybe Lin-Manuel Miranda as well. Who knows? Well,
at least he didn't play Usnavi in The Heights, as we say. But you know, it is what it is. I think at least you know what we could say coming out of this film. At least there wasn't a kiss. That's exactly my first thought when the credits rolled.
Did they not kiss in this movie?
I do not believe they kissed, and thank goodness for that.
I didn't even notice that. But I mean,
it would have been statutory something. I don't know what.
Yeah, I feel like you're probably right, because if there had been a kiss, I would have written it down. I would have written some unkind things about that, and I haven't written it down. Okay, right, rating. Let's do it. I'm going to go first because I feel like I just need to get this off my chest. It should surprise no one. This is a 1-star movie. It's awful. I don't think this is even good in like a so bad it's good kind of way. It's just awful. What do you think?
I know what you mean. I wouldn't recommend this as a so bad it's good movie, but I potentially, if you're around my house, might throw it on for a laugh, because I think we'll find it so bad it's good, but I don't know if we can convince other people.
A cruel test of our friendships.
Yeah. I don't think we could convince other people of that, but I think we could actually make it that way. So is 1 the lowest rating you can go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we make the rules here. You could go 0 if you really wanted to.
I'm going to go 1 because I think actually, well, usually if you go half stars, a half will be the lowest. So 1 is the lowest in our scale.
Yeah, there's only one movie that I've ever rated half a star on Letterboxd, breaking my own no half stars rule because I wanted to distinguish it from every other movie that I've seen. I can't remember the name of it, but it was so offensively bad that I had to denote it in some way. Okay. But yeah, 1 star. Okay, right. Well, I think that do you want to, I'm just going to ask you this on air, so to speak. Do you want to record that bit now, or shall we do it after this?
I think what we'll do, we'll hide the magic and we'll finish the podcast, and then I'll sort of spend a bit of footery time trying to get everything sorted.
Okay, lovely. Well, okay, in which case, if you don't want to listen to the end of this episode, you're not going to hear whatever comes next.
Yeah, so, that was a very natural plug, guys. Like,
that's on you. Stick around to the end. This is our version of like an MCU stinger where, I don't know, I almost got him Mr. Strange then. Doctor Strange is going to turn up and be like, you've got to come with me to fight the Kree.
Yeah, except it's just Konrad listening to how to break in a glove. and he won't find it funny at all. I just want to show it to him.
No, and it won't get anyone excited for anything. But, we're going to do it anyway. Everyone had to start somewhere. But before we do that, we're going to end this, as we always do, with one simple question. And that is, Anthony, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is actually In the Heights, I will say. I've went back and listened to a lot of the soundtrack of that, and it was a much better musical than this was.
Yeah, I think nothing brings competent musicals into or nothing elevates my opinion of competent musicals more than musicals like this that are just utterly joyless.
Yeah.
And In the Heights, it had some great music in it. I actually went in a similar vein, went for The Wizard of Oz, because you can never fail with The Wizard of Oz, really. Yep. Okay, cool. Well, that's going to do it for us. So thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. Check out links to their stuff down in the description below. And thank you to you for joining us. Please consider subscribing to us. We are the Culture Cave on YouTube, and we're the best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps. Give the show a like, get involved in the comments. It really does help with engagement. And we will see you same time, same place next week.
Your mom isn't going anywhere.
Like a truck.
There'll be no U-Haul truck in. I can just imagine when he's like 30, 35, she goes into his room and goes, there's a U-Haul truck in our driveway. You are going somewhere. You can't stay right home. Here.
All right. Okay, here we go. Right. 3, 2, 1, play.
This glove's really cool. Wow.
No, why don't you take it?
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Why not?
What?
Are you sure?
Why not?
What glove?
I bought this glove 1,000 years ago.
Oh,
for some birthday or some Christmas that has come and gone.
I mean, this is proper.
It called a glove?
Baseball glove.
It's a mitt, isn't it?
Baseball glove. No, they're both. I think both. You wouldn't put it on in the snow, like.
Yeah.
You can't catch anything with it that stiff.
How do you break it in?
This is the big second act opener. This is the big. Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah. Go for a catch with me, Dad.
So this is a man in his two men in their 50s playing catch.
Yeah. Oh god.
I didn't even catch that his name was Larry.
Shaving cream.
Oh, yeah.
Larry. It doesn't look like a Larry.
5 minutes. Tie it all up with rubber bands. Put it under your mattress and sleep on it. And you do that for at least a week.
I never understood
every
this.
Day, consistent.
I don't understand.
And though this method
isn't easy.
So it's teaching you how to break in a glove.
Yeah, because when you buy them, they're leather. They're really stiff.
To what? It's just a weird thing to bond over a stranger's son with.
Yeah, I think it's meant to be a metaphor for grief. Like it's about like the dad getting over Connor, Connor's suicide. I think. Yeah. Which.
That's how I advise people to get over their child's death: is to forget about them and replace them with a worse version.
Yeah, he's like saying it's all right. Like it's okay that he's dead because I've now got a new son to throw cats with, so it doesn't matter that I didn't throw it with him. Like he killed himself. Yeah, of course he did, and that may be his fault because he didn't play catch with him.
Yeah.
But
we can all agree that
all's well that ends well.
Both sides of the Connor situation, but we've all moved on from that, and now I'm going to make the best of this new blossoming relationship I have with Evan.
Such a good musical.
This is, I mean, I'll say this for Larry. He seems to know his stuff when it comes to breaking in gloves. But I mean, this is very technical for, and it's oddly placed as like the big Act 2 opener to get the crowd back on their feet after the interval.
Yeah, which is really interesting actually, because the whole point is that he didn't really do this with Connor. So how the fuck does he know so much about it?
Yeah. I love that this was just replaced in the movie with just a like 3-minute scene where he talks about baseball.
That's like,
it's like, hey, you can sell this baseball. It's signed by, I don't know, some guy who was good at baseball, and it'll get you some money for your Kickstarter. And
the Sultan of Sweat. The Sultan of Sweat, Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Oh god.
You know, I don't like this at all. Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, now this is the part where he says he did his best for Connor. You know, he did his
It's
best.
become somber now.
The hard thing. Because that's the right thing.
Oh. Honestly, listening to this, it's like something out of like a parody musical.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like something that like Matt Stone and Trey Parker would put in an episode.
I was
of South Park.
literally about to say this. It makes me want to just like have you react to Book of Mormon.
Yeah. It seems like something in Book of Mormon or like Avenue Q or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Cream, rubber bands, mattress,
Got it.
repeat.
Well, there you go, Conrad. That's the big opening number of Act 2. Would that get you ready for it?
I mean, it would get me ready for it, but I mean, it wouldn't get me excited for it. It would prepare me for what was to come by setting my expectations accordingly.
I thought you were going to say it would prepare me for what is to come. If what is to come is a game of catch.
Oh, it'll definitely prepare me for a game of catch, and you know, I'll carry that knowledge from Larry about how to break in a baseball mitt with me, perhaps for the rest of my life.
That's the problem with that, is we all assume that's correct.
That's a fair point. That's a fair. Yeah.
Put some shaving foam in your glove, rubber band around it, pop it onto your mattress, good to go.
Do your own research, is what I'm saying.
Do your own research, guys. All right, thanks very much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.